Hi Kodiak, it's Marnie here, and today I'm going to show you how to make whole wheat bread.
Here we go! Kodiak on the water, Kodiak on the land. Feel it getting stronger every year.
Here are the ingredients you will need. 1 teaspoon of sugar, a half a cup of warm water, 2 1/4 cups of yeast, 1 1/2 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 1/4 cups of whole wheat flour, 3 tablespoons of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, a half a cup of warm water, and 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil. This recipe is taken from a cookbook called The Pleasures of Your Processor by Noreen Gillets. And before you start, make sure that you have permission to use your oven, or even better, this is a great activity to do with an adult. It has a number of steps involved.
Well, the first thing you need to do before you start baking is wash your hands, and I've already done that. And then you need to gather your ingredients, and I've done that too. So now what we're going to do is we're going to dissolve the yeast in some sugar and warm water. So I have half a cup of warm water. I used cold water and then I put it in the microwave for 15 seconds. And now I'm going to pour it in this jar. And I've already added a teaspoon of sugar to the jar. Okay, now I'm going to stir the water a little bit so that the sugar dissolves. And then I'm going to take my yeast. This is quick rise yeast, but you can use this or traditional yeast. They both work. And I'm going to take 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. 1, 2 1/4. And I'm going to add it to my water, and I'm just going to mix it a little bit, and we're going to put that aside until later. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add my flour, sugar, and salt to my mixer, and I'm using a mixer. If you don't have one, you can still make the bread, but you're going to have to knead it a lot more. You can also use a food processor. So I'm going to take 1 1/2 cups of white flour that I measured out. Put it in my bowl. This is 1 1/4 cups of whole wheat flour. Then it's 3 tablespoons of sugar. 1, 2, 3, and 1 teaspoon of salt. Okay, so I put all those ingredients in, and then I'm going to close up my mixer, and I'm going to mix that for about 5 seconds. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my yeast, which is dissolved in the water, and I'm going to pour it into the mixer, and I'm going to mix it all together for about 10 seconds. So I'm just going to do that while the mixer is running. Now I'm going to take my water and vegetable oil, and I'm going to add it to my flour and sugar mixture and salt mixture while the mixer is running. And I'm going to look for it to form a ball. And after it forms a ball, I'm going to keep mixing it for about 30 or 40 seconds. Here it goes. Now that we've mixed the dough together, we're going to take it out of the mixer. And we're going to knead it on a board or a sheet with a little bit of flour on it, just a little bit, so it doesn't stick. So now you're going to want to knead it for about 1 to 2 minutes, and the way you're going to knead it is you will press it down with the heel of your hand. nice ball of dough, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it into a bowl that I've already greased. So I'm going to round it up, put it in a bowl, and I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap or aluminum foil. And I'm going to put a clean towel over it, and I'm going to just leave it to rise for about 1 to 2 hours. Okay, so now we've waited between 1 and 2 hours. So I'm going to take the towel off my bowl, and I'm looking at my dough, and it should be about double the size. So I think that's probably long enough. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch down the dough to get rid of all the bubbles. Here you go. You can get your frustrations out. Okay, when all the bubbles have been punched out, I'm going to lift it up and I'm going to put it down on my floured sheet or my floured board. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a rolling pin and I'm going to roll it out into kind of an oblong or a rectangular shape. Whoops, it's a little bit sticky, so I'll put a little bit of flour on top. Okay, now I have my pan. I've already put some cooking spray on my pan so it doesn't stick. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll up my dough and then I'm going to put it in the pan. So I'm starting at one end and I'm rolling it up. Here we go, and when I get to the end, I'm going to tuck each end under. And so that the seam should be on the bottom. And I'm going to fit it into my pan, like that. And then I'm going to take my towel, I'm going to put it over the pan, and now I have to let it rise again for about an hour. So I waited an hour, so now I'm going to take off the towel, and here's my bread that's risen. Now I'm going to put the bread in the oven. I preheated it to 400 and I'm going to leave it in there for 20 minutes. Okay, so now I'm ready to take out my bread. Here it is. And I'm going to tip it right away onto a cooling rack. And let it cool for a little while.
Here are all the steps again, in case you'd like to pause the video and take a screenshot.
Okay, now comes the best part, eating it. And don't forget to clean up your dishes, all your mess when you're done.